Today, we're going to be doing a workshop on watercolors. So for instance, here are some of my watercolors, and then going back in with a pen in order to do some really fun detail work. So these are my Micron pens, but I have other pens to show you as well. So I did want to let you know that over on my website are links to these events, like the show that's happening right now, which gives you a description of the event, as well as if you want to play along with the show yourself. And of course, feel free to ask any questions that you like in the chat. That those events on my website indicate what items we're going to be using during the workshop. So if you want to prepare ahead of time, you can always go look at the event that's on my website, and it'll show all of the items we'll be using. You can then go to my links, supply links item on my website. It's a menu item, and you can find a lot of the products that we'll be working with that you can pick up to purchase on my website. So here's the information on my website right here. It is www.beatsart.com. When you go there, it's going to go and switch to .gallery, but that is still my website. That's the link to my website. All right. And if you are on YouTube watching, you can come over to Whatnot if you want to, in order to participate in the auction and the giveaway at the end of the show. And so if you are on YouTube, there's a QR code toward the top of the screen. Hey there, Twinkie2609, welcome in, welcome in. On YouTube, there's a QR code on the screen, which you can scan to come over to Whatnot, or in the description of the video, there's a link you can click on, and you can come join us over on Whatnot if you want to participate in the giveaway at the end of the workshop. And what are we giving away today? Well, I grow lots of marigolds in my garden, and now that it is springtime, they have, some of them have already gone to seed. So I have these seed heads that are full of marigold seeds, and I've also made artist cards to go with them. So this is, some people call them artist trading cards. Other people call them ACEO, which stands for Artist Card Editions and Originals. The ones I sell are originals. And this is an idea of what it is that we're going to be doing today, which is working with watercolor and then going back in with markers and marking it up. Or sometimes you do the markers first and then you just splash watercolor over top of them. So that's the workshop that we're going to be doing today. And these cards, and together with a seed packet, are what we're going to be giving away at the end of the workshop. So in order to qualify and jump into, hey Brad Scott, welcome in, welcome in. In order to jump in on the giveaway later, then you'll need to be over on Whatnot. And if you're on YouTube, then come on over and join us on Whatnot. And if you're new to Whatnot and you join up with the links in my description of my video or the QR code on YouTube, then you can get $15 free to spend from Whatnot. Woohoo! Thank you, Whatnot. But again, we are, the giveaway is an artist card like this, an artist trading card, and seeds. It'll come with marigold seeds because I have tons of them from my marigolds in the garden today. Okay, before we get started on the workshop, I did want to show you an event that I have coming up on Thursday. So this coming Thursday, which is March 28th, the Pebeo Paint Company, so you see my apron here, Pebeo, they are sponsoring me to do a demonstration with Opus Art Supplies, which is a store up in Northwest Canada in the Vancouver area in British Columbia. And this is the project that we're going to be doing. Well, I'm going to be teaching you, the workshop is called Special Effects in Acrylic Paints. And so this is a project that we're going to be doing, and there's an outliner that comes with the project. So you see my dragon outliner here, and what I call a color guide. So that's a printout of this with all the colors in it. And during the workshop, I'm going to be explaining about various types of acrylic paints and how to get these really cool special effects with the acrylic paints, including something, for instance, like this. Here's the dragon outliner, and here I'm going to show you how to use a palette knife and modeling paste to make dragon scales and some other cool stuff. In addition, I like to do a lot of my artwork, if you look on my website, has faux Asian characters. I grew up in Asia, so a lot of my artwork will have real Asian characters like these and faux Asian characters like some of these. And so one of the things that I'll be showing is how to get 3D character play. Now you could just as easily use, our alphabet, but because I grew up in Asia, I like to do mark making. These are not real characters, they're mark making. But if you look, there's a lot of texture in there, and there's a trick to that. So I'm going to be sharing that during my Thursday workshop. And these, you're getting a sneak peek, but these are some of the effects of the paints and some of the shimmer paints, the metallics, the fluorescence, and then this is a glow in the dark paints. My favorite that I get to share is about some of the textures. So like this kind of sand and this kind of sand texture, and there's that modeling paste that I showed you, and oh, check this out, crackle modeling paste. So I'm going to be talking about those and showing how to use them and some applications for those. Something that I think is amazing about the paints, and I just showed you the sand textures. Check this out. This is a piece of canvas, so it's gessoed canvas, and this has the sand texture gel on it. And this piece is probably 5-6 years old, but look at how flexible it is, and none of that sand comes off. So I'm very excited to share that and the Dragon Project with not only the folks from Opus that sign up, but also with my peeps here. So if you want to sign up, all you have to do is go to my website, and under events, you'll see that after this, the next event is this. You'll see the dragon. You will see this picture. And also in the description of this event, you can click and download the outliner. So I recommend that you do that. Go ahead and click and download the outliner, which is for free, whether you come to the workshop or not. And then after the workshop, usually they give me a video, the folks from Opus Art Supplies. So then I will put up a video and I will put a blog post and give you all the good details about it. And I hope you join me. Again, if you want to know my website, it's here, www.deetsart.com. And then you can find that event and future events like this workshop today. So let me put this aside and try not to have things fall down on me. All right. So today we're going to be talking about watercolor, and I love working with oil paints, acrylics, watercolors. I love it all. Color, color, color. That's my thing, right? And texture. You can see lots of texture in my artworks. And so today we're going to be focusing on watercolor and working on watercolor paper, and then using permanent markers to go back in and highlight the work. So let me see if I have a couple pieces here. I have a few pieces here where I used an acrylic marker on them. So I made shapes in the backgrounds, nice, soft, and fuzzy, the way that you can work with watercolors. And then I went back and did my graphic design type of work using markers like this. These are acrylic markers. And this was last week's workshop. So if you're on YouTube and you would like to go watch last week's workshop, if you missed it, you can just go to lives, the tab on my YouTube channel that says lives, and you can rewatch the older shows. And then if you're on Whatnot, the shows stay out on past shows for, I believe it's 90 days. So you can go watch it on Whatnot if you like. Here's another one. So again, this nice soft watercolor in the background, and then boom, I went in on top with acrylic markers and made lots of did my graphic work on top of that. Those pieces are available also if you are on Whatnot. You can go to the little house at the bottom of the screen, and in the Buy Now section, you can find those artworks available for sale and make me an offer. I'll be happy to take a look at your offers during the workshop. And if you do want to look at my artwork that's available on Whatnot after the show, that all these items that I'm showing you that are finished artworks are available in the shop. So you'll just go to the shop tab on my profile and you'll find all of these artworks and more. Now, when you see an artwork like this that I'm showing you that's just on paper, realize that when you purchase it, you're going to choose between a black mat like that. So there it is in a black mat. That means this is going to be an 11 by 14. It'll fit into an 11 by 14 frame. Or you're going to choose a white mat like it is. So most of my artworks that are in the store, you get to choose whether you want a black or a white mat. Some of them are already matted, and it's because I made the decision that for that particular piece, that was the best mat for it. So some of them already have the mats, but for the most part, you get to choose whether you want the black mat or the white mat to go with it. Some of them, depending on the shape, some of them you can only get a white mat for, because that's all I have cut to that particular size. But it will tell you right in the listing what type of mat it will go for. Here, I need a little sip of coffee here. And I want to wish anybody who went to church today a happy Palm Sunday. And again, thank you for being with me this evening. Now, I did show earlier, but if you weren't here as the giveaway today, these are some of the marigolds that are in my garden. So I went and I took pictures of them. Let me see, there's another one here. Aren't they gorgeous? Oh my gosh. That's like spring has sprung here in Florida. And what I did was then I used the techniques that we'll be doing today, and I did some different artist cards. So this is a trading card size. It's 2.5 by 3.5, and this is going to be the giveaway today. So if you're not already on Whatnot, I encourage you, if you're over on YouTube, to go ahead and come over to Whatnot, register, get your $15 to spend, and we'll have the giveaway at the end of the workshop with the seeds from my garden, from my organic garden. Woohoo! Okay, let me, actually, I'm going to put those where they're not going to be flying all over the place, which tends to be what happens in my studio. Now, there are a lot of people that I follow on social media that are other artists that are, I think, are exceptional at what they do. And they inspire me. Hey, what is that? Welcome in. Thanks for joining. So these, I'm going to show you now. And if you want to snap a picture of the screen, you'll see who the artist is. I wrote it down at the bottom of the page, but also when I post this video on YouTube, under the live tab after the fact, then after the show is over, you'll be able to access, I'll put in there who these people are on Instagram. So you won't have to worry too much. Oh, who was that? And you lose the picture. No worries. Just go to the video of this workshop and I will have the other artists' links in the description. So this is, and I screwed up her name right here, but it is NatanaZarian. Imagine if you're playing Scrabble, right? And in Scrabble, look at all those A's that are in that name. Holy moly. But look at how much fun this is, where in her journal, she just puts watercolor and then goes back in with her marker. And that's where I was talking about the Micron marker. But if you have an acrylic marker like this, you could also do it with an acrylic marker. And so she goes back in with a permanent marker over top of it and does all these fun designs. Isn't that awesome? So this is from her Instagram page. Now that's just like circles and dots and dashes, very sort of random, right? But then if you want to get a little more purposeful, this is the same artist. So there's her name right there. And if you are on Whatnot and you want to see full screen without the chat, you can swipe, I think it's swipe to the left, and the chat will go away, and then you'll just have a clear screen. So that can be helpful. But here, same artist. Look at this. She's just making random leaf designs, like just random shapes with her watercolor, and then coming back in here with these permanent markers and drawing on leaf shapes. And here, this is little trees. So she just made blobs on the page and then came on with her black and white markers and created these really cool designs. Here's another one. Again, same person. See, I keep messing up her name because she has so many A's in her name, right? But isn't that cute? So she just drew these little lines and played around with her watercolors and then came back in and put little marks in there to turn these into trees. Sometimes she'll do little squares and turn them into houses. Ah, she's fabulous. Here's another artist that I really appreciate what it is that she's doing with the watercolor. She is letting the watercolor kind of dictate what it is that she wants to do. So here it's Leanne, let's see, what does it say? Leanne underscore drawings. And what she's done is she goes in and just randomly, let's say that you have leftover paint on your brush. Before you wash it off or clean it off, just have another piece of watercolor paper next to you. And I call that serendipity paper. And then, oh, hi there. AA is over on YouTube. She asked if I stretch my paper. I don't stretch my paper. When I'm working. So thank you for your question. And I know what stretching is, and absolutely you can stretch your watercolor paper. That simply means submerging your watercolor paper first in water, taking it out of the water, sponging it off, and leaving it to dry flat. Usually you tape it with a gum tape that is water activated, and you tape it down, and then you do your watercolors on top of that. And that helps to prevent your paper from bowing one way or the other and having the water go in unexpected places, right? But most of the time when I'm doing watercolor, I am playing and I don't worry about stretching my paper. But I also use good paper, and I generally use 135 to 160 pound paper, and that also helps a lot. So I'll be showing you some papers in just a moment. Here again, Leanne Drawings. So you can see that she just randomly takes her paint and without forethought, she just puts her paint down on the surface. And then when she comes back with her pen, that's when she puts a little more thought into it. And she's created what she calls, or what does it say? It's backwards to me there, ocean abstracts. So these are ocean themed abstracts. And isn't that amazing how she just comes in with the pen? So there's only a little bit of watercolor on here, but then she comes in with her pen and defines that space, and that's what gives it an underwater feel to it. I love this. I love this because I love to paint abstract. I love to look at abstract. Some people are not, they're not attracted to abstract. I am very much attracted to abstract. This is the same artist. So this is giving you more of a feel of something that is representational, but it's still very loose. And that's what I love. Isn't this amazing? So again, it's Leanne Drawings. And you and I know what that is when we look at it. I know what that is. That's a mommy whale and a baby whale, right? But it's so loose and so watery here. And then look at what she does with the marker. she goes back in and puts all these beautiful, suggestive of ocean type shapes into the artwork. Wow. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Okay. I just, wow. What can I say? Love that. Love, love, love that. Now, this is another person. What is this? Artsy Beats. Artsy Beats on Instagram. And see where she shows the marker here? That's the same kind. These are the Sakura markers. And there is a link under supply links on my website where you can find the Sakura markers. And sometimes when you're on Whatnot and somebody's doing a craft supplies show, um, you can sometimes find people that have either the Pigma Sakura Micron markers or sometimes other types of fine liners. Let me just show you a different fine liner. This one's by Derwent, but you want some sort of permanent marker. And so here this particular person does a lot of mini, uh, what would you call them? Mini lessons on their Instagram. It's so cool. And so this is from her Instagram. And you can see this one is, I think, my favorite. Well, I don't know. It competes with this one right here. But what she's doing is taking very simple movements, simple shapes, and turning them into something, to me, that is fantastical. Now, this one's a little more complicated, but still, she breaks it down and makes it simple for you. And I find that extremely helpful and you can see here, she has either printout pages or books, something like that. But I definitely suggest you go check her out. And if you're interested in doing more drawing, and I like more doodling, like this one here and this one here. I like that style. Now this is the same person, Artsy Beats, and you see how you don't even have to be doing like plants. You see how she's doing something very interesting here that's more geometric. We're going to try that when I'm actually showing you what it is that we do. And then here she's doing acrylic and doing random colors on a canvas and then coming back in with her permanent markers or acrylic markers. This is on wood. So I wanted to show you these other ways that she does this. See how it's not just coloring in whatever your design is. You can just put blobs of watercolor paper down, watercolors down, and then look, she comes in and does a super cute design right on top of it. I love that. I love that because then you can be a little more random and think about what you want to put down later. And to me, practicing doodling is a good way to both prepare for what it is that you're going to be doing during your painting session. And it's a great way to relax too, is just to find and practice different doodles. I suggest getting like a journal, see the ring bound paper. So just get yourself some ring bound watercolor paper or mixed media paper, and then practice drawings like that. But I love this one on a piece of wood. And during the holidays, a lot of people use those rounds of wood to make ornaments with. So isn't that a great idea? You just put a couple of shapes of acrylic and then you go back in with an acrylic marker or one of these permanent markers, a permanent ink marker, and do something like that. Love it. Love it. Love it. And this is one of the last ones that she posted. And she literally just sat there and put circles of color in and then went back. Well, first she used a pencil. So first she used a pencil. She drew her design in the background. She put the blobs of color down with watercolor, and then she went back over top of it and did this design. Isn't that fun? Oh, just the possibilities. Now, one last artist, and this is MYAY Art. So Maya Art, I believe. Okay, so same idea. She's just putting down shapes. But you can see that her shapes are different, and she has her own sort of take on this same process. I just love this. You don't have to stay within the lines. If you make a leaf shape, you don't have to put the design where the leaf shape is. You can do the design off of the leaf shape. Isn't that fun? And then here she went back in with white. So she had some darker color there and went back in with white in order to highlight. I have one or two more of hers here as well. Now here's a way that she is innovating her designs, and these are tags. So she has these, she punches out round watercolor tags and then does her designs on there. But again, see how she just puts a little bit of color on there and then goes back with her marker. This one only had one colored leaf on it, but she went in and created this whole design, and here too, using those black permanent markers. And then here, she's making bookmarks. So she buys or cuts out the plain paper and then doodles on it and then goes back in and puts some color down, or vice versa. You can put the color down first if you're using transparent watercolors, or you can do the color before or after if you're using transparent watercolors. But you see some of those, like these blue ones right here. Oh boy, I just love those. Okay, and one more from her. No, actually, I have two more from her. Sorry. So here's an old book page. You see the book page? So she just glued the book page down in her little ring binder there, and then did some random drawings. So not everything has to be finished artwork. Um, a lot is about play, in my estimation. In order to create great artwork, you need to play in order to just get in the flow and learn how your materials work. So here's where she was just doing shapes and then coming back in and drawing on an old piece of book, right? An old page from a book. And then here she did a wreath. So she put down various colors, or maybe she put down her shapes first and then came back in and put in her colors. And here I like how she shows a whole series. So for a series like this, for instance, that's what I do to create cards, greeting cards, is I will use, hold on a second. So this is an example of a greeting card that uses a 4x6 piece of paper. And then it gets glued down onto a greeting card when I'm like, oh, I like that one. Okay, that one is one that I'm going to share with everybody. Because not all the artwork that I make gets shared with y'all if I'm like, oh, I don't like that. Gesso over top of it and start again, right? But I love the way she shows a nice series here. And you can do them all as 4x6s. Like, for instance, yeah. Come here, you. Ooh, I'm trying to get my paper up without getting my books into food I have over here. So this is, the link to this is on my website, but this is Jack Richardson watercolor paper, and it's actually postcard size. So it's 4x6. It has a postcard stamp on the back, but this is that size that you could do a bunch of work like this, like she shows right here. And then that is something that then is really easy to put on cards or to take photographs of and do prints, that kind of thing. But I just love the way that she put them. They're very simple, and yet they're totally unique to her. And then one last from her. And what I liked about this one was she added shimmery watercolors. So this is actually gold shimmer watercolor here that she added into that design. And I love shimmer watercolors. So I'm going to be sharing with you today my favorite shimmer watercolors right here. So when we get to that part that we're doing the highlights on some of the work. And then this is one other artist that I really enjoy. This was from her website, although she's also on Instagram, Lena Forrester. And look at this, how creative this is. So she laid down areas of color to create this really moody landscape. And then what? Then she came back in, probably with more watercolor and a small brush, and started defining the areas. This looks like a tree in the wind. This looks like leaves, right? There's another tree shape down here. But she starts off with just areas of color and then comes back in and defines those areas with interesting shapes. And that is the objective for today, is for me to show you how to do that. And some tricks for that, like how to get ideas for the various kinds of doodles, because I don't know, I'm much more just throw blobs of color down or do collage like this. See, there's collage on this piece of artwork of mine, but then there's also like a whole bunch of blobs of color, right? But I really like how these artists that I just showed you kind of define, they create something out of those blobs of color. And so the way that I get inspiration for that is I grab books that have drawings in them that I like. So you see how this was $1? It was literally from Dollar General or the dollar store, something like that. And so this one happens to be, what is it? Tokyo Street Style. Now, see, it says it's a coloring book, but I don't use it as a coloring book. I use it as inspiration for drawing and sketching. Everything that's in here is very sketchy. It's not photographic, but I love the sketchiness of it, and it gives ideas. Oh, okay, I could do that. And then there are also, in this case, some like random leaf patterns. So do you see how you could grab a page out of there? Actually, I like this page, which is lotus, right? Lotus flowers and lotus leaves. So we're going to do this one with the blob watercolor idea. And this book happens to come, I mean, $1. Come on, y'all. This happens to come with this so that you can mark your page. I mean, so much value in books like that. I hate to see books thrown away or go to waste, right? And then this is another one that came from one of those dollar type stores, or it might have come from a drugstore, but it's a coloring book for succulents. Again, I don't buy them to color in. I buy them for ideas, doodling ideas, right? And this one, what I really liked here, I liked these circles right here. It's simple. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, just simple works. So here's something super cute. These are actually cacti, but they put these really cool circles on them. And then over here, I love this. Not complicated, y'all. It can be super simple, but still very effective, right? And I'm using one of my bookmarks to hold the page there. And then here's one, craft a doodle. Okay, so creativity exercises. And this is just to teach you that, hey, if you're not, hey, Slusher, welcome in, welcome in. If you're not uh, like, if you, how many times have you heard, and I've heard, somebody says, well, I'm not artistic. I'm not artistic. I can't do what you do. This, you see how simple this is? I don't care if you're 6 years old or you're 86 years old. You can do this. And the trick is just following along. In the beginning, that's what I did to learn. I taught myself how to paint, and I also went to the Boca Museum Art School. But the first thing I had done was bought a bunch of books and taught myself how to paint using books. So this one, I love this one because it had it. See how it shows you step by step. There's a little pug, right, with a crown on, and then let me see. Oh, owls. So it shows you a whole bunch of, ooh, can you see those? There you go. A whole bunch of cute owls, right? So you don't have to get complicated. It actually, the instructions it shows you are super easy, right? to create your own owls. Sometimes all you need is inspiration, and that's why I follow certain people on Instagram for inspiration, Instagram, Facebook, and then I have these amazing books that I can pull out. And actually, last week, um, I had done in celebration of St. Patty's Day, right? Hey, Love Be My Motive Studio, welcome in, welcome in. So last week I showed you how to use acrylic markers, right? Acrylic ink or fluid acrylic markers to do some fun artwork with. And this was one of the pieces we were working on because why, it was St. Patty's Day, right, on the 17th. And so now what I want to do, and I had shown you how I used one of these markers, okay, the Sakura marker, to go in and do some definition on these flowers here. I also used the green acrylic, let me see where it is. So, yep, this acrylic marker right here. I went in and I did the outlines here. So that was after putting paint down. But you see how there's a little space right here? We're going to use that doodle book and we're going to put a little butterfly on there. So that's what we're going to do to start. But before I go over top of the table, let me show you a little bit more of the paper that is great for this. Again, watercolor paper. And so I just showed you this postcard size, the 4x6 and the Jack Richardson. But Jack Richardson also makes even bigger sizes. So this is the 6x9 and they have a 9x12. And the reason that I really like these, they're great for doodling and playing around with. So you notice that it is, where does it say? 100, the 135 hash means 135 pounds. So this is 135 pound paper. Most paper that you get that's watercolor paper is 140 pound paper. But you know what? This is perfectly fine. It works just like the 140 pound paper. And what I love about it is you can buy, you see where this says 50 sheets? And it's very reasonably priced. You can get 50 sheets or 100 sheets. So if you want to commit to doing this watercolor thing or even mixed media painting, I use watercolor paper all the time for my mixed media paintings, then I highly recommend this. And if you want to find the link for it, like I said, you go to my website. That's Dietzart, D-I-E-T-Z. It's like the word diet with a Z on the end, art.com. And then you look under the menu item supply links. And under the watercolor area, watercolor papers, you're going to find a link to these. But I love, love, love this paper because when I'm just experimenting, it is the perfect paper. It performs very well. The other paper that I love to use, so if you've been at my classes before, you know my workhorse is the Canson XL watercolor paper. And I use this for mixed media as well as using it for watercolor. And it's 140 pounds right here, 140 pounds. And you can get it either in a pad like this where the pages come out separately. They're glued at the top. Or you can get it like this, where it comes with the rings, the spiral bound. I like the spiral bound if I'm going to do more journaling kind of stuff, like really experimentation. As a matter of fact, to do the kind of thing that we're talking about today, this is a page of doodles where I was just experimenting and learning this process. And so I put it in the spiral bound book because these are kind of like my journals where I do my experimentation. And then if I'm doing work that I want to, I know that I'm going to be doing work that I'm going to be selling, then I do it on top of something like this where I can work on individual pages at a time and they just tear right out easily. So the other kind of paper that I introduced last week is black watercolor paper. Now, there is actually watercolor paper in a couple of different shades, but the two that I use the most are this, I love the Legion Stonehenge paper. It's just excellent quality, and it's 140 pound black watercolor. This stuff is just, wow, phenomenal. And it comes in cold press, which means that it has some texture to the surface, and it comes in hot press, which is smooth. So on my website, you'll see that I have hot press papers and cold press papers for you to look up. All right. And then, of course, we're going to be working with watercolor paints. So these are beam paint stones. They're made by a woman-owned business in Northwest Canada, and they don't use any plastic. So they come in wrapped paper like this. Instead of filling little plastic uh, pans, like half pans, they put them in paper. Isn't that cool? Like that. And they all have the indigenous, their indigenous tribal names as well as English names to them. And what I did is I separated them into greens and blues and purples. No, greens and blues. And then here I have like yellows, reds, and purples. But what's nice about these little containers that I just got from Dollar General, I think, is they have a clear lid. So isn't that cool? That way I can store them, but I still can see exactly what I have in them. So those are some of the watercolor paints we'll be using today. And then I told you that I was going to show you my favorite, like metallic, and it is this Gansi Tambi Starry colors. So this is a whole bunch of different golds and then a pearlescent, which kind of is silvery, but it's really like just a white pearlescent. But it, certain shimmer watercolors work really well, and others don't really have the punch that you want. And those Gansi Tambi, wow, they're awesome. They give you a lot of punch. All right, so we are going to go over top of the table. Um, so let's do a doodle right here. And I don't always create things out of my head. I use references. And when you're first learning to paint, you have to use references. That's how you figure out what it is that you want to paint, like your subjects, and also maybe technique. I was just watching the artist Christy Rice, K with a K, Kristy Rice. This is one of her little paint palettes, but Christy Rice, I was watching her today on Instagram, and she was saying how she was in a museum and how she looks at the artwork, and I do exactly the same thing. You go up to the artwork and you're looking at the details, like how did they do that? there's there are two ways to look at art. There's the up close detail where you can see like how did they do that, and the lines and the strokes and the color combinations and the color layering. And then when you step back, you're looking at what is the effect that all of that had, right? Because there's the technique, and then there's the overall effect that you're looking for. What I've done here is I've gone to a reference book, so somebody else's work, because I need to grab a little something to go up there on the card. So what I have found here that I liked, this is, let's see who the artist is. The artist here in this book is Flora Chang, and I just love her. These two sides don't have to be exactly the same, but she's included she did sort of a reflection from one side to the other. But what I liked is you see how she has a cute little butterfly right there? And then this is also her work, and she has other cute little butterflies over here. So let's use one of those. And really, it's as simple as that, like copying in some cases. So this is my Pigma. The company that makes these is called Sakura, and it's Japanese, and that's what it's a Sakura flower on there. If you see that little red cherry blossom flower, you know that it's made by Sakura. And this is their graphic marker, so you see the tip right there. This is probably my biggest workhorse. They come with different nib sizes. This is the size 1 in the graphic marker, size 1. Now, it's not going to give me a line this thin. Okay, it's going to get, actually, let me show you the difference here. So this is just a little piece of watercolor paper that I make marks on. So there's how heavy that line is. That's the graphic marker, number 1. And then let me show you some of these other ones. So that was the graphic number 1, and then we've got a 08, and can you see those? A 08, a 05, a 01. So the thinnest one is going to be the little teeny tiny tip here of the 01. So that's, let me write here, 01. This is 0.01 millimeters. That's what that means. And then here's the 05. So that's 0.05 millimeters. And then here's the 08. So it's 0.08 millimeters. So can you see the difference there in the thicknesses of the lines? That's what those numbers mean, is how thick, how wide that little nib is. So I'm actually going to use the 08 because to me the 1 millimeter is a little bit too big. So I'm going to use the 08. And it helps to make yourself a little reference like that so that you know what your lines are doing. Sometimes you want a thicker line, sometimes you barely want a line. And as a matter of fact, this right here was the 01, the smallest one that I did last week. So let's do one of these butterflies, and I'm using the 08. Where's the little butterfly that I liked? I really like this little butterfly over here. So I'm essentially going to copy it. So we want, it just has a few little things like that. And then a little loop at the bottom. And we're going to mirror that on the other side, right? And it has sort of a heart shape there. So I'm not doing it perfectly. It's okay. I like stuff that's what I call perfectly imperfect. Okay. And now because I made a little mess up right here, I'm just gonna go back over it and thicken it up a little bit. I can actually go over it again and kind of give it an extra line like that. There are ways to kind of correct your yourself. Don't be afraid to go back over it again. There, so that way it's a little more loosey-goosey, right? And then I'm gonna do this and put a little. So now you know it's a butterfly, right? And now I've got a little butterfly on there. Oh, the other thing they did was they put a little heart here. And then we'll just do a little heart here. So now it's a butterfly with a little heart inside the wings. Not exactly what they did, but that's the point, is this is your inspiration, and then you get to do your own sort of inspiration on that. So now we have a little butterfly on there. When we get into working with the watercolors, I'll put some color on that, and this will be ready to go. Let me go ahead while I have my pen out and put my signature on here. There we go. So that'll be a finished card when I get done with the 4-leaf clover for good luck. All right, let's set that aside then. And I'll kind of keep this handy so that I know the various sizes. And let's go ahead and I will show you in this book some of the work that I did ahead of time. I showed you this just a moment ago. And what is this? This is literally blobs of color of watercolor. And then I went in with a smaller brush and made details in these various areas. You can see there. Just playing around, goofing around, getting a feel for how to do this. Not my favorite artwork of mine, but definitely on the road to doing things that I really like. Hey, Community Mercantile, welcome in. Now, I wanted to show you that with watercolor, just by using water and picking up various colors, you can create these beautiful color blends, especially if you're doing, say, if you want to give the effect of a landscape, you can start with some blue and make it more aqua and bring it into green. And then you'll have a beautiful background on which to do your doodles with the markers that really comes, geez, it really just offsets that background. So that is a fade, where you fade from one color into the next. Of course, you could do it rainbow too and do many different colors as well. And then this is, whenever I get new watercolors, this is usually what I do to start to test them out. Is I just sit there and I make circles with them, and we're going to do that in just a moment together. And then that way I get a feel for how the colors go onto the page, and also how they react when I add more water to them. And so this is my way of figuring out, like, what are they doing. And then this is following in the footsteps of one of the artists that I showed you earlier for inspiration. And after I show you creating these backgrounds, then this one's already dry that we can come over to and make some marks on. So let me find some watercolor paper here. There we go. So this, see, this was the one that is like this, and it just has glue at the top here. It's not a block. Remember I showed you before that a block has glue all the way around except for a little tiny space where you can put your, your palette knife in and go around and release it. This is not a block. This is loose paper like this, but it came in this sort of folder here. So let's do that. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to make some of those circles, and then we're going to come back and we're going to put some really cool mark making in the circles. So let's start with, I've got my paints here. Normally what I do, I'm going to move the paper out of the way first, because normally what I'll do with these paints is I will spray them down first. So this is just a spray bottle of water, and I do that. And the purpose of that is to loosen up the paint. Now, if you're working in a, where are they? Hold on a second. I have some other paint to show you, but I have to figure out where I put them. Oh my gosh, oh yes, here they are. Okay, so these are your typical paints that you might see, called paint pans, right? These are little cakes. Actually, sometimes they pop out. Let me show you on this one. So this is Derwent, and let me see how these little things they pop out. That's what, well, they pop out if you do that. Let's get one of them out. There we go. So you see there, that's called a paint cake. And this happens to come, and they have a nice little color chart for you. And this is what would be considered a travel set. So it has a travel brush. You put water in the bottom part of the brush here, and then so they're called water brushes. And then there you go, like that. And perfect for using on the go. And then you have your little blocks of color there. This happens to be a metallic, so these are very shimmery. Let's start them juicing up right here. Okay. And then this one is another set. You can see the colors there. But this one is by Derwent, and these are called Inktense. It's actually like little cakes of ink, concentrated ink. So these are actually quite, these Derwent Inktense are quite bold in their color. I'll show you the difference between them and a traditional watercolor like these. Okay, so let's do this. And you can see they come with an area that you can do color mixing here. Actually, let me just get that wet. And then the beautiful thing about watercolor, and what a lot of artists love about watercolor, is that you can re-wet it just like that. So let me take one of my watercolor brushes. This is a Princeton watercolor brush. And if I just do this with the water, Now I have color. So the color is what's called reactivated. You can't do that with acrylic paint. Once acrylic paint is dry, that's it. Now these Derwent Inktense are supposed to be, once they're dry, they're supposed to not be able to be re-wetted. But as you can see, to some degree, yes, they can be re-wetted. So it's just something that you need to experiment with to see whether it's going to re-lift from your page or not. Traditional watercolor will not re-lift from the page. I mean, will re-lift from the page after it's dry. There we go. There's a little circle. Let's get our brush wet and pick out another color from over here. These are the paint stones from Beam Paints. There is a link under the watercolor section in my supplies area. So let's just, ooh, I like that. That's very, I love that color. It's almost a tealy green, isn't it? So what we're doing here, we're just making sure there's plenty of water in our brush because I don't want concentrated colors. I want colors that are very loose right now, like that. Because why? I'm going to go back in and I'm going to draw on top of there. So I don't want the color to be too dark. Now, if you put down color and you think, oh, that's a little bit too dark, I don't want it quite that dark, all you have to do is take a paper towel like this and lift some of that color out. Or you can just add a little bit more water here and lift the color like this with water if you feel like it was too dark. That's one of the nice things about watercolor is you can work back into it and lift some of the color out. Now some of the colors are staining, like these reds over here. Oftentimes the reds are very staining, and what that means is it won't lift as well. So here, it's kind of a cranberry-like color right there. And oftentimes with those kind of colors, when you go in and you try to lift it, some of it will come, but it has a staining value to it, and it will literally stain the paper. You can't completely get it out. Okay, let's do this one. Yes, I'm double dipping with, like, I have one color on my brush and I'm dipping in another color. I do that all the time, actually. When you're experimenting and learning how the colors work, it's okay to go over top of other colors. This is about play. Okay, that's a light enough color that I'll be easily able to go back in there. Oh, I like this. Now there are two different yellows here. So let's try them out to see what the difference is. There's one of the yellows. Wow, this yellow is super bright. And put lots of water into it. Let it run with the other ones. Now I just added a bunch more water because I want to pick some of that color up because it is bold. That's a nice bold yellow. Okay, let's try this other yellow, which looks like it's not quite so bold. Okay, and I'll put this yellow over here. Interesting. This yellow is a little more what I would call green. It's kind of a green yellow, like a lemon yellow. And it actually goes over top of this other color very nicely. You see that? Where this one is going to, these two are going to intermingle. This one's going to lay on top. So those are the kind of things you can find out as you play with your watercolors. When I first get my watercolors, when I first ordered these and they came in, wow, yeah, I'm all over them to do practice like this to see how they react and interact with one another. Oh, there's a nice orange. There's a very earthy orange, right? Now, if you know anything about color mixing, orange and blue, they actually will create kind of an olivey brown right here where they meet. Colors opposite one another on the color wheel. Let me show you my color wheel. Feel free to ask me any questions about color mixing because I do tons of color mixing. So here is an artist color wheel. And you're going to notice that orange is across from blue. So anytime you take, up here we have your primary colors, your magenta, your yellow, and your blue. So if you want to see what orange and blue look like, you turn this color, this is called a color calculator, um, and you have the orange and the blue, and you see how it gives you kind of an olive type dark color like that. So some people think of that as mud. Sometimes you want that kind of color right there. Um, and that is an effect you can get if you put these two colors together where they touch one another. You can end up with mud. And that's what I hear from a lot of students. I keep getting mud. And it's like, well, get yourself an artist color wheel. This is by gosh, this is an old one. This is from 1976, but it's the Color Wheel. Oh, what's the name of their company? I think it's actually called the Color Wheel Company. That you can get a color calculator like this from them. And they're very handy, especially if you're relatively new to painting. Super helpful. Okay, let's go into this spring green. Now, sometimes what I'll do if I'm working with a color a lot is I will pick it up like this in order to make it easier for me to paint with it. I'm going to add a little bit of water to make it very wishy-washy. Oh, love that color. Love, love, love that. Okay. And what would be a good color right here? Maybe a purple? There we go. See how I double dip? I don't worry about it. Just have fun. Whoa. Okay, that purple is, wow. You see how heavy or how dark that purple is? Yikes. I don't want it that dark because I'm going to be doodling back in on top of these. So what am I doing? I'm getting a little more water in my brush. I'm adding water to it and pulling back some of the color. There we go. And then I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to dab in there and take back some of the color. So that's how I can lighten it if it's too dark. But let's put some darkness back in there. Because what if I go over it with a white marker instead of a black marker, right? I can put a white marker on there. And that way, if I do it with the white marker, I want some of the circles to be dark. So let's put this dark back in there for the dark blue. Let's make it dark again because I can just go back in it with white, a white marker, right? Okay, now some of these colors are transparent. Let me set these aside for right now. Some of these colors are transparent and some of them are opaque. So if you look at this one, this is, I think Robin's egg is the color. So this paint stone is like a turquoise, but it's a gouache. A gouache is an opaque watercolor. So this particular company, Beam Paints, sells gouache paints and transparent watercolor paints, but these are the opaque version. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? We're going to have to make that into a robin's egg, right? So let me let me make it the shape of an egg while I'm putting it on the paper. Why not? Now what I'm noticing is, wow, when this combines with this yellow, it looks amazing. So it can be helpful to have a palette, something like this, right, where you can mix colors. So let me take, this is just a little painting cup, and I'm going to put some of this color in there so I can show you some color mixing. I'm going to grab some of that. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it so it's nice and flowy. Okay, so I've got some of that color in there. And now what blends well with blue? Yellows blend well with blue, and that's what just happened right here where the two were next to one another. Wow, the color was beautiful. So that was this yellow right here. I rinsed out that blue from it. Now I'm going to combine the two, and you're going to see we're going to get a beautiful green with quite the yellow undertone, right? Isn't that gorgeous? Wow. Okay, so I'm going to actually put that over here. So what we've just done is we've created a color that's very similar to the one right here, but actually quite lighter. It's a little bit more more lime green, where this is a little more, looks like foliage, right? So I love color mixing. Oh, color mixing is so fun. Okay, what else can we color mix? Now, if I have green, what happens if I add a red to a green? I'm going to get a brown, right? Because if I look on the color wheel, here's my like yellow green, which I just mixed. And actually it's showing the opposite here is a red violet. So if I add a red violet to that, then I'm going to get a, let me see, I'm going to get kind of a muddy color. But let's do it anyway so you can see. So let me have like a red violet here. Let's do a little bit of the red and a little bit of the violet. That'll give me a red violet, right? Yes, I'm double dipping. It's okay. It's really okay. There we go. Now see how I got a kind of a brown? By putting the red, red purple in there, along with that green, the yellow green, it gave me a brown. But we're going to put the color down here so you can see it. Brown. But what this color makes me think of is like the base of a mushroom or some peat, you know, like peat moss. So there's the brown right there. But you see how I created that just by looking on the color wheel and saying, huh, okay, I have some color left in here. What can I do with that to create another color? And it's okay sometimes to have very neutral what I call background colors. It's okay. Sometimes you need neutral colors to offset your brighter colors in order to really make the brighter colors sing in your artwork. Okay, let's clean this one out just a little bit. Okay, I need a new paper towel. I go through lots of paper towels when I'm doing watercolor. All right. And I love the, so I just made this brown, and notice that in here we have something they call wheat. Wheat is this color. So here I'm just going to pull up some wheat so you can kind of see the difference between the color that I mixed and the wheat that they mixed. Now, what's the difference between a color that I mix in a pot like this and the colors that they have blended together to get these different colors here? The difference is that this often, when you put two colors together, they will separate as you're painting with them. So even on the page here, sometimes you can actually see more than one color. You can see the two colors separate sometimes, and I love that. So just bear in mind when you're color mixing, straight from your colors that are already blended. So if they wanted a brown or a purple, they're either taking a single pigment or two pigments or three pigments, and they're grinding them together in a mill. And when they do that, the color ends up very refined and very even through the color mixture that they have here. Where if I took those two pigments and I mixed them in a dish, the colors may separate as they're drying. It's not going to look the same as when they put it through a mill. All right, let's see, another one. I like this, nope, I don't want to do a purple. What about doing bubblegum pink? So you see this one. This one is actually wrapped in, it looks like cloth that's soaked in wax. But they don't want to use plastics, so they use natural elements. There we go, like that. So this is a gouache. You can see all the white that's in there. So it's going to be, in this case, semi-opaque because I used a lot of water. But if you layer it, you're going to get an opaque look similar to the robin's egg here. So I am just letting them run into each other. Let's use extra water. All right, and one more layer here, and then we're going to start. This part up here is already dry, so we can start to doodle in those. I love this purple one right here that's called lilac. That reminds me of lilac. If y'all are somewhere where lilac grows, put a shout out in the comments. In Florida, we don't grow lilac here. We grow a lot of the tropicals, right? So then one more. Wow, this one comes out very light lilac, but it's beautiful. And it's got a little bit of opaqueness to it. So it is a gouache, as you can see there, like the bubblegum pink is. All right. And now here's a brown. Let's see, maybe that'll make a dark color. Oops, I don't want to put it right below that brown that I mixed, so I'm going to bring it over here. Yes, that is quite nice. Okay, so there is a place for browns in your palette. This particular brown I would use for like if I were doing pine trees. That's the depth of brown. It's like a black brown, but that's the depth of color that I would want in something like that. Now, let's see over here. Some of the colors that they make have, that Beam makes, have sparkle in them. Is this one of them? No, that's not one of them. Okay, so this one has sparkle in it. Let's look at this one. So some of them are iridescent, and this one is iridescent. Beautiful, rich green right there. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah. I'm dipping into the water to be sure that it's nice and runny. Oh yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't show well on camera, but it actually sparkles. And when they dry, they sparkle even more. Okay. Now let's next go into another one of the blues. Right here. This is a nice blue. What do they call this? Sky. This is a sky blue. I encourage my watchers to try to buy from individuals who, like, I've seen the lady that owns this company do paint demonstrations, and I was so inspired. I was like, oh, I have to have her paints. So then I went out and bought a bunch of her paints. So I encourage you to support, um, individual owners of businesses like this lady business owner. She's fabulous. Okay, it's actually more of a gouache. So I'm pulling some of the color out. There we go. And one last block right here. Now I love when this happens. Do you see how these two are running into each other? That's why I like to use lots of water when I do this. And then also up here, the purple ran into the green, like the spring green right there. I love that. The faster you work, well, it also depends on your brush. If I had a moppy brush, let me show you. This is a Christy Rice brush. You can actually find the Christy Rice brushes and watercolors link on my website under supply links. Go most of the way down the page and you'll see her brushes. But what's nice about this one, it has a big head to the top of it and it holds a lot of water. So it's actually more wishy-washy when you work with it. This one is, I believe, called Grizzly because they live up in the woods in Northwest Canada. And so, hey, grizzly bears are in their woods. And this one is called Wet Grizzly, and it's actually an iridescent light brown. So imagine that a grizzly bear gets wet. What does their skin look like, or what does their hair look like? Yeah, cute. So it's a very light brown, but it has sparkle in it. So that's the cool thing about it is when you're putting it, you can use it as a top layer on top of something else to give it an interesting sparkle. All right, so I'm actually going to pull a little bit of that out. So this is, you put color down, you pull it out. You put it down, you pull it back out. I do a lot of that with watercolor. I'm constantly putting it on and taking it off. People are like, well, but you paid for the paint. Why are you taking the paint off? Because I'm an experimental painter, and I like to work with special effects. So to me, there are special effects that go along with putting paint down, taking it back off, putting it down, taking it back off. That's why it can be helpful to have that serendipity paper I was telling you about, another piece of paper next to you that, let's say that I wanted to remove some of this color, I could go in with the brush and just water. I could remove some of the color and then put it over here on my paper, my serendipity paper, off to the side. So I'm constantly using the pigment. But, you know, to me, paint is made to be used. It's okay. I can get more. If I run out of one of these colors of watercolor, I can just order more. When you're painting like that, then you get to know the colors that you like the best. As you can see here, this particular blue is, there's a lot more of a dip in it. That means I use this blue more often than the other colors. You'll get to discover which colors you like best as you're painting, and then you can just buy more. I can just buy this one color. I don't have to buy the whole palette. And that's the beautiful thing about working with professional watercolors, is you can just buy the individual color that you need when you find the colors that you like working with the best. All right, let me show you. Let's see if you can see right here. If I go like this, can y'all see the shimmer in there? So this one is shimmering and this one is shimmering. Oh, they're so cool. So cool. And I like to use those shimmer effects normally at the end of my painting on the top layer, so that I just give that little bit of shine and shimmer to my artworks. As a matter of fact, this one that we're going to do after this, we doodle on here. You see how I have this really pretty green in here? Why don't we add a little bit of this wet grizzly onto there, so that by the time we're ready for this, there'll be some really cool sparkle in here. So I'm just adding a little bit of sparkle on top. So there's some wet grizzly sparkle. And then I'm going to add some grizzly sparkle over here. This is actually like too much, so I'm going to pick some of it up and bring it down here. All right. So now those are actually going to be all sparkly. And there's a little too much on this one for my taste, so I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to go back in and I'm going to lift a little bit of that out. Very carefully. You don't want to take a piece of paper towel that has paint on it. You're going to end up with paint all over the place. So I'm very careful when I do that. But now these 3 leaves are going to be sparkly when they dry. All right. Let's take our marker and let's take some of our inspiration photos. So let me find the photo there. This lady that I liked so much. See where she didn't even line up her dots, did she? She just played and put random dots down. So what we're going to do now then is we're going to use this as inspiration to do some of her shapes. And I really like this one right here. So let's do that. But in this case, and I don't have to do it inside these circles, although I can, right? And if you have any special requests, like, what if you do this? What if you do that? Just put it in the chat and I will be happy to do that. Now, I showed you these permanent markers from the Micron pens from Sakura, right? And this is a from Zebra. So if you see Zebra right there. And what's cool, this is a Japanese, it's all in Japanese except for the word zebra. This says Jung something. I'm not sure. It looks like Jungzu. Um, yes, I lived in Taiwan and I spoke Chinese, and I lived in Seoul, Korea, and I spoke Korean, but that was a long time ago and I don't remember all of my characters. So, what I like about this particular pen is it has a small tip on this end and it has a big tip on this end. Isn't that cool? So, I'm going to start with the big end. And then if you want, you can start with either end and then go in with the other one to get different details. But I love pens like this that have options. So here's the big end. And let's do, ooh, actually, my favorite one, I think, is this one right here, which is a bunch of circles with little dots on it. So you're going to see this is so relaxing to do this. So let me put it, why don't I put it right here? And now if you want your circle to be random, put it in your non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed, so I'm going to put it in my left hand. And then when I go around, oh my gosh, the lines are so squiggly. It's a lot harder for me to control what I just did when I'm doing it in my non-dominant hand. So do you see those really cool squiggles? So let me, now I'm going to go back to my dominant hand, and I'm going to make a dot in the center and do some spokes here. Why not? And then I'm going to put some dots on the lines. So I'm essentially following along. Like I said, it's okay. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can take other concepts. I remember seeing somewhere where someone had said, someone famous had said, nothing is really truly brand new. But I don't necessarily agree with that, because you can tell with different artists what their style is. But it's okay to take concepts from other artists and then start playing around with it. So that's my version, which looks completely different than her version right there, but it's the same concept, right? Now let's do this one right here. Ooh, I like this one a lot. So here is, let's do a line like this. And then in a circle shape, she drew straight lines through it like this. So since I don't like that, I'm going to actually draw a circle around it, just because I didn't do a very good job of making it look like a circle with those lines. So there you go, like that. Now, these are using black. Ooh, okay, I see another one that I like a lot, which is like this. It's just going with little dashes like this in a circle. I have to turn my hand. Oftentimes I turn the paper. Okay, and then they come out like this, and we'll do a circle around that with dashes. Now, when you do work like this, and really you're engaging your brain and your eye-hand coordination, it is extremely relaxing for your mind to do this. And you're thinking, oh, well, somebody's just putting dots and dashes on the page. There is a lot more engaged when we're doing this. Okay, dashes, dashes, dashes. When you have to engage your brain to do a design like this, even though it looks like it's simple, it is simple, yet that brain-hand coordination, it's super important to learn that. And this is something that you can do with, of course, with children very easily. You don't have to use fancy schmancy artist grade paints to do it. You can use the paints that come right out of their their kids watercolor kits. You can just put out the blobs, right? and then hand them a pen or a marker, hopefully one that's not permanent, one that's permanent, so that, oh, I can see that my headset's just died. So let me turn off my air conditioner so you can hear me better. There we go. Um, Okay, so don't hand a child a permanent marker, because otherwise they're going to have, like I have paint on me, they're going to have permanent marker everywhere and all over your furniture and everything. You don't want that. So take a marker that can be washed out, for instance, a watercolor marker of some sort, or a children's marker that it says that it can be washed, it's washable, and then share with them something like this. And what it does is it will help children to increase their focus, even though they're playing and it looks like they're randomly putting marks down. Not only does it help children with focus, but it helps us as adults to synchronize the right hand and the left side of our brain. Okay. So I'm very, I don't know which. I'm very mathematical minded and very technical minded. My career before doing this was in computer science, and my career was a computer analyst, and so I'm very analytical. But if I want to, that's why these lines are all even instead of the artist mind, which is like this, which is very random. All right. But if I want to synchronize the right side and the left side of my brain, this is an excellent um, project to do before sitting down to do other sorts of painting. So I suggest that if you don't already, that you get yourself a journal of some sort. Like I was telling you before, I like to use a ring. This is my Canson paper. Ooh, here we go. I'll show you the front of it. This is my Canson XL paper, but it's ring bound. So I can take my doodles and work inside here and just work with colors and then put doodles on top of it. If I like it, it has a perforation right here where I can take it out, and then that becomes a permanent piece of artwork, or it just becomes another one of my journals with items that I'm testing in it. So I suggest that you get yourself something like that. Okay, so another thing you can do to scramble your brains and get your mind really working in tandem between your right brain and your left brain. So it synchronizes your brain, which makes you able to focus, be more creative, and yet at the same time get more done. So some people like to sit and meditate. I like to do this instead. And this is what helps me to relax and to synchronize my brain so I can be more efficient. But if you really want to scramble your brain, what you're going to do is turn your paper. So let's move these out of the way. This is a technique that a lot of artists use as they're painting. They, especially abstract artists, they will turn the paper. So you're either turning it a quarter turn, which is what I just did, or you can turn it a full 180 degrees, which would be essentially upside down, and then work on it that way. Right now I'm going to do a quarter turn. So I would do a few more designs with it in a quarter turn, and then I would turn it a quarter again and work on it there. So that's going to help you to, how some people can do things or paint with their right hand and their left hand. When you do this turning and you're looking at things from a different perspective, it's like an exercise again for your brain, and it helps to make your brain more elastic in the way that it thinks. Okay, so let me do a design here that is not from here, just is from my brain. Now I'm really going out on a limb, right? I like to do bubbles. Actually, I like to do circles and things. So let me work on this. Remember I said I wanted that to be an egg. So what if as an egg? Now, instead of this black marker, let me see, I have a green marker over here. So this is a Copic multi-liner, and it's another, it says water and Copic proof. Copic meaning uh, alcohol pens. But this one actually has a really tiny tip to it. And I'm just going to make some circles on here, like as though this were a robin's egg. Some dots. So let me bring it up so you can see what I'm doing. I have some circles. I have some dots. If I want it to show up more, I can do a bigger one. Now, most of the time when I do circles, if I want a precise circle, I go, what direction is this? Clockwise. No, counterclockwise. Isn't that funny? I go counterclockwise when I'm making the circle if I want the circle to be more precise. If I want the circle to be looser, I go clockwise because my fingers are not used to doing that. And then I get more of an organic circle like this one right here. Right? It doesn't have to be perfect. The idea here is for it to be very artistic. So if I go in that opposite direction, also if you hold the pen very lightly, instead of, gripping it like you would if you were writing, if you barely hold it lightly, you can also get some very loose marks that way. And sometimes I like to do that in order to get more marks that are quite a bit more random. And then I start going in the opposite direction. And then that's a lot more, my dots and my shapes there are a lot more random when I do that. Okay, so these are great ways to sort of fake your brain out and loosen up. I love getting loosened up with that. All right, what is another design that we want to do on here? Oh, I love bubbles. Bubbles. Let me use the small end of this instead then. And so that's the smaller brush end. And I'm just going to randomly draw some bubbles here. Reminding myself to go in the opposite direction of what I normally would do. Okay, so this is just an excellent way to relax. Some people will do this and cut it up, right? You'll make the whole sheet and then you're going to cut it up and create artist cards out of it. So something that I sell are artist trading cards like this. So here's an artist trading card or an ACEO, which is an artist card for sale. And it's 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So that means that it is like baseball card and Pokemon card size, right? But these are original works of art that I make. And notice right here, do you see the little, it's two-tone bubbles. It's a gold and a white right there. And then I make little wheels. So you can see the gold wheels down here, right? And these are marks that I like to make on, yeah, there are some little bubbles right there in purple or blue. You see them there. So those are the kind of shapes that I like to make to add the artist's hand, my own doodles to my artworks. And it's a similar process. So if I made marks all over these colors, I would then cut it up into these shapes and I can make artist cards out of them. Here's another one that has another design that I like to do right here. So let's make one of those on this paper right here with white. So what do I use for white? Everybody has their favorite white pen. And my favorite white pen that I do have a link to on my website, if you go to deetsart.com and then you click on the menu item that says supply links, down under pens and writing instruments, you're going to find this Uniball. It says Uniball Signo Broad. And that's my favorite white and gold pen right now. So it makes these really nice bright white designs on a dark background. So let's do one of those. And remember, I was saved the purple, the dark purple, and the dark blue here. So let's do this design on the purple. And sometimes you have to go around a couple of times. Sometimes I do more than one layer. Sometimes to get the ink to flow also, I just do this on my little scratch card, because what's happening is this ink is reactivating that purple. And I don't know if you can see it, but the little lines that I just put on here are actually have a little bit of purple in them. Okay, and then let's do one more outer circle here. So I'm doing that shape. Come on now. It keeps getting the purple pigment stuck in it. Okay, and then now I've done my 3 circles, 1, 2, 3, and now I'm going to do these lines. So I'm going to start from here and do the lines out. Radiating. Oh yeah, that is so cool. So I love, this is my favorite white pen. Do that, do that. Okay, it started running out. This pen is almost dead because I use it so much. Okay, so there is the white against the background right there. Yes, isn't that cool? Oops, sorry, I moved it the wrong way. But there you go. Now I've got a white image on there. Let me show you the gold. Yes, it's the exact same Uniball Signo Broad. I actually bought it as a set. It came like this: the white, the gold, and the silver. You can find it as a set like that, or you can buy them individually. I'm going to need a new white because I'm almost out. Okay, so let's do the gold. And let's do the gold on this blue over here. Oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to turn it a quarter of a turn, right? If you want to scramble your brains. Okay, and where did I just put my little itty bitty piece of paper? Come on now. This is the second time I've lost something tonight, right? That's because I went right over top of it. Okay, so let's make sure the ink is flowing. So there's the gold right there. The ink is flowing. And let's go into one of these dark areas. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to put some circles here. Why? Just for the heck of it. Because once you start doodling, then you'll begin to create your own doodles. Whatever blows your hair back at the moment. 2, 3. There we go. So there's the beginning. Oh, can you see it? There it is. See the gold? I just love the look of the gold on the dark colors. So again, that's the Uniball Signo Broad in gold. Oops, can you see it there maybe? Okay. So that's another kind of pen that I use often with, as you saw with my artworks. Here's another one here with some of the white on it and those wagon wheels. I love doing those little wagon wheels. So let's use the black and do a wagon wheel or two with the larger. So the wagon wheel is 2 circles with spokes. So I'm going to go the opposite direction of where I normally go. So let me just go here like that. And then I'll do a smaller circle inside. And then I'll do my spokes. So I call those wagon wheels. All right, awesome. So that's the way that I like to warm up, is just with random shapes. Let me see what else she has in here. This is where, instead of doing circle blobs, Remember I mentioned here, these are ovals, and she turned them into trees. That's what I was, that's the technique that I was using when I did this one in my journal here. Let's see, which was this one. So that was the technique that I was following along with here, like it is, of just blobs, big ovals, and then turning the ovals into little trees. That's so fun. All right, and then let's get rid of that. And we're going to go to this one. Oh, let me show you how I actually paint these. And I used a different kind of paint to do that. Actually, I'm going to use this one so you can see with the pans instead of with these little, what they call paint stones. And then I'm going to show you how we use the Gansi Tambi to highlight some of the leaves. So I'm going to go back to working with the this big fluffy brush. Let me take this. I'm just going to pull this page off of here. There. Okay, we have a new page. And oh my goodness, I'm already getting paint everywhere. That's not unusual. All right, I'm going to do it this way. So now I've got these, I did spray them earlier, but they're already no longer juicy. So let's juice them back up again. And so I'm going to do, I have a juicy brush. I want the paint to be relatively loose. Let's see, where are my colors? Hold on a second. I have my little chart right here that they provided. Let's start with this kind of funky green yellow in the background. And now there's a bunch of paint on the end of the brush, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dip the brush in water first so that's really juicy. And then I'm going to come on here and I'm going to create my leaves. There we go. I'm going to dip back in there, get a little more juiciness out of it. And let me do another leaf over here. So this, I'm telling you, anybody who says I'm not an artist, you can do this. I guarantee that you can do this. I just have a round brush and I'm just making a mark on one side and a mark on the other side and creating a leaf shape. So let me show you up close. Right? Just a little leaf shape. It's that easy. It really is easy. You can do it. You can do it. Okay. Let's get that off of there and go in with a, I love this orange. So let's do some orange. Oops, I'm going to move that out of the way. Let's grab the orange next to it. I'm going to dip my brush in water so it's nice and juicy. Let's do a bigger one. I'm pushing a little bit harder here to get an even bigger leaf. And then I'm going to do another leaf down here, maybe going in this direction. All right. What I'm doing is creating something where I can put a stem right here in the middle. All right. Let's do this one that looks kind of magenta-like. If I go straight to the paper from the block like this, where there's a lot of paint in the tip of that brush, you're going to see that the paint is quite thick, quite dark and quite thick. I don't quite want it that dark. And that's why I dip it in water first. Because if you dip it in water first, then the color will come out a little less dark. So let's pull up a little bit of that color there. Actually, if I get this brush wet and I bring it back in here, I can lift some of that color so it's not quite so dark. There we go. Lifting it up a little bit. Nice. Ooh, I love the washy look of it anyway. When you go back, like even this one up here, if I go back and I lift some of the color and I add more water, it's going to give you these really cool marks from the water as it dries. So I like to do that a lot. Let's do this. I'm just going back in with the rinse water. And I'm adding more water so it gives it a unique look to it. All right. So let's go back into this sort of pink, but I'm going to dip it in the water first. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do a leaf this way. So you're just playing around, and it is okay if they overlap one another. You know, painting is supposed to be fun. Don't be hard on yourself. Do not be hard on yourself. What do we have right here? See, if I want to know what that color is, I can put it in here. Oh, that's a dark blue. Okay, that's interesting. If I don't know what the cake is, like here, I can do this one and then put it over here. Oh, that's an even deeper blue. So this one right here looks like an ultramarine or cyan blue. And this is probably the ultramarine or a Prussian blue over here. Okay. Let's sort of stay in this family. I'm going to pick up a little bit of this bright red and I'm going to double dip. It's okay. It's okay. Added water to the tip there. So this is giving me a unique color that's in between. And here we go. A little bit more of this red and a little bit more of this red. Double dipping is perfectly fine. Okay, let me do another one right here. It's super simple, y'all. Super simple. Just like with those circles, we're just having fun. No pressure. Let me do a small leaf up here at the top like that. That's fun. Okay. And then I want to grab some more of this orange, but maybe I'm going to mix the orange with this funky green yellow and let's see what we get. And add some water. And then maybe I want a leaf that is, what if I want one that goes down like this? And there we go. In that direction. That actually has a lot of pigment in it because that red is very, very pigmented. So I'm actually going to lift a little bit of that back up. And I have my paper towel here, so I am just dabbing it on the paper towel when I lift the color up. So I pulled some of that color back out. All right. Now, one of the principles that I use when I'm painting is the principle, growing up in Asia, you do everything in odd numbers. So you have 1, 3, 5, 7, like that. Oh, I had a little bit of spillage over here. So I'm cleaning up my spillage, which is typical, happens all the time. Actually, you know what? I'm going to lean into the spillage. And the way I'm going to lean in, when I say spillage, what happened was I got a little dot on there. And I was able to pretty much clean most of it up with water, but let's lean into it. Let's get super juicy here. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. And it's super juicy. I can add a little bit more water even. And what are we going to do? We are going to splatter. So let me get another brush. When I splatter, I take another brush and I'm going to hit the two against one another like this. So, oh yeah. Right? Lean into it. Sometimes the universe is telling you that you need to do something with what seems like a mistake. No mistakes. Okay, that was fun. So now I've got dots all over the place. Why not? Cool. And then I'm going to take what's left on here and I'm going to sort of come. I'm just making let's just make the middle here of a branch like that. For the heck of it, let's get a little bit of this orange green on there. Come in like that. There we go. And then you've got some outliers over here. So what do I want to do? I want to take a little more. Like, I'm just getting crazy, right? I'm doing that. There we go. There's that one. There's that one in the background. And now it just looks like a branch. Cool. Now I'm going to add a little more water here. I'm going to show you why. You see this one right here where it looks like there's a line down the middle of the 2 strokes that I did. So I don't want that line to stay there. So I'm going to add some water. And what am I doing? I'm dropping the color onto here that I just picked up. So I'm just picking up some of that color so that it doesn't have that awkward line down the middle. Let's do a little bit more here, like add a little more water. And this one right here is very flat. If you look, you see how the color is sort of flat right there. So I'm going to add just a little more water here. And that's going to give us some extra depth, as it dries, it'll give us something extra. All right. Now, remember how I said the metallic? So there's the Gansi Tambi metallic, and actually I also had shown you and opened up this one, which is the Derwent, the same travel type brush set as this, or paint set, but this one has some gold, green, blue, purple, pink, and those all have shimmer in them. But my favorite, I mean, those are good. Those are definitely good. But my favorite for adding bold gold is this Gansi Tambi. So here we go. Let's pull this out. The company that makes it is called Kuretake. Kuretake. They are Japanese. And so this is the Gansi Tambi set right here. You can see those light golds. And then this, did they call that silver? No, they call it white gold. So they call these all golds like that. Now I could mix this. I could take my little bowl right here and I could put some orange in it, and then I could mix some of this white gold in it, and that would just make the color that I had in my dish iridescent. But for right now, I'm just going to pick up what they already have here. And they've got something called red gold right here. So it has kind of a red undertone to it. And it's nice and bold. Actually, the yellow gold is probably my favorite right here. But hey there, don't give up. Welcome in, welcome in. I'm going to pick up the red gold right now. And the nice thing about these is they are in individual little, let me see if I can get a bin out here. They're in individual little plastic bins. See that? So when one of them runs out, and it even says on the back, it's number 906 white gold, and then it's in Chinese and in Japanese on the back there as well. So the nice thing is when you run out of one, you can replace it in your set from Kuretake. You are able to buy the single ones. Okay, so I just put gold on here. I'm going to dip the tip in the water. And let's put a gold leaf in here. Oh my gosh, where am I going to put it? Because this is a dark gold, you're actually able to see it. So you see that there? Oh yeah, that's all shiny. It's all shiny. Let's put a few more leaves in. Add a little bit of water so it flows off the tip there. And, okay, I want another leaf right here. So there are a couple of gold leaves that I just put in there. Now, that's creating a whole leaf out of gold. And that's what I like this Kuretake set for, is even though they're watercolor, which in general are rather light, these are, they dry very dense. And that's why I like these. So actually, I have to do things in threes, right? Let's see how many leaves we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. No, 12. I already counted that one. We have 12, which means what? Odd numbers for that if you're going to paint in an Asian way. So I'm going to put a leaf up here. That's going to be our 13th leaf. And that is going to assure that the painting, for the most part, is in balance if you've got an odd number. Oh, okay. It's actually looking better on camera than in person, but we'll remedy that soon. Okay, so that's all of my leaves. And in this case, I put on spatter. Now, I would normally set this aside for, I like it to be fully dry. So I would set it aside for about an hour, make sure everything is dry before I go back on top of it with a marker. Because if you don't do that, sometimes as I was showing you before, the fact that these markers have fluid ink inside them as they roll over, you know how that purple of that last one here, this purple was being picked up by the white marker right there because it hasn't really fully set. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to set it aside. Oh, another thing that I do with these often is as I'm painting, I will grab one of my mats. So this is an 11 by 14 mat, and I'm working on a 9 by 12 paper. So I find the 9 by 12 paper works perfectly to go into an 11 by 14 mat. So what I do here is I audition my painting with the mat to be sure that I'm keeping my artwork balanced within the framework here of how I'm going to mat it. So that's just a tip, another tip of what you can do as you're painting if your purpose is to paint items that you then want to frame eventually. Okay, we've got quite a bit of water right there. So I'm going to set this aside for right now again. And let's go to this one. Okay, now, remember I put the wet grizzly color on top of the green? So let me see if you can see the shimmer. It's not that easy to see the shimmer, unfortunately, but I'm looking at it and it looks very brassy. There's some shine in there. And that came from these paint stones from Beam Paints. The color Wet Grizzly actually does have some shimmer in it. Now I could go back in, of course, with these Kuretake, and I could add shimmer to those as well. But what we're going to do right now is we are going to enhance what's already there. Again, this is where I would be looking at this and saying, oh, is that well balanced? Yes. Okay, that piece is balanced to where when I put a mat over it, it's going to look good. It's going to look good. It fits within the framework. Let me put some of my brushes away here and let's go back to here. So my, the one that's my art like this, you see that, how she does the leaf shapes and then she goes back in with her heavy marker and then does some really cool stuff. So let's do that. I'm going to use her art as inspiration. Let me just put it up right here so I can see it. Brink. All right, so I'm using her piece as inspiration, and then I'm going to use the this kind of, oh no, it keeps wanting to fall over. Okay, I'm going to set it aside, but I'm going to use this because I like the thickness of the tip here and the way that it lays down the paint. Now I'm going to actually set it on top of here because this is stiff. This was the Canson paper. And there we go. So now I have a nice stiff background for there. So one of the things that she does that I really love is she will, starting at the tip, she makes a mark like this. So instead of the typical way that you might do a vein in a leaf, she's going this way from the tip and creating lines. So it almost creates sort of a pod shape, right? And the cool thing is, of course, you don't have to stay inside the pod. You can go outside the pod as well, which is what I just did there. Okay, and now I'm going to draw a line here. Now, just so you're aware, if you weren't here earlier, when these workshops are finished, they are available. If you're on Whatnot, they're available in past shows for about 90 days. And then if you are on YouTube, they are available on my YouTube channel in the live section. Okay. So there's one leaf like that, highlighted with the lines. Then another thing to do, oh, I love how she does a combination of, she'll do a combination of lines and dots. So let me run a line down here on this leaf, and we're going to do more of a typical sort of leaf and vein design over here. Sometimes she'll do a couple of them close together like that. I'm going to bring this up to you so it's closer in just a second. All right, so something like that, but then she'll take dots and put like random dots on the other side. I love random dots. So maybe a big dot right there. They don't have to be perfect. The cool thing is when people are buying art from an artist, the hand of the artist should be evident. So you should be able to look at it and go, oh, okay, that's a piece that Tristina did, or that's a piece that this particular artist did. Her lines are not going to look the same as my lines because we have different hands and different ways of mark making. So there's that one there. And then what are some of the other designs that she uses? She'll just do a random one where she'll put a line down the leaf. And then instead of being more symmetrical like this one is right here, she will do something like this. So there's a thick one, and then maybe a thin one, and then another thin one, and another sort of thin one, and then maybe another thick one. So something a little more random like that one right there. Okay, so that is the lesson for today. Does anyone have any questions before I go into the giveaway and then we go into the sale? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions about the paints? Any questions about the brushes? Any questions about the paper? I am happy to answer any of the questions that you might have. Of course, if you want to purchase any of the paints, this one I will add to my website later tonight. I didn't have this on the website yet. It's the Gansi Tambi in those links that I was telling you about. I do have the beam paints in the links, so you can go look there on my website under supply links. Hold on just a minute. Of course, this piece of artwork and this piece of artwork will be available on my website after they're done. And I should have them next week to show you finished. Woohoo!